I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty excited for Battlefield 5. Even after the whole reveal trailer and Patrick Soderlund incidents. Some of you may disagree with me, but I'm still excited for the release. Made me even more excited when I found out they would be including a war story named Nordlys for the War Story campaigns. Translating to Northern Lights in Norwegian, it'd be based on the Norwegian resistance actions when Norway was occupied by Germany. Seriously, this amazing story is way too underrepresented in common World War II media, and I feel like I should shed more light on some of these people who accomplished some really impressive things. Before we jump in, we need some background on the invasion of Norway and Denmark. To accomplish their wartime goals, Germany needed Norway. Besides the huge amounts of oil contained off its shore, it had one of the only functioning seaports for exporting huge amounts of iron ore to the Allies, called Port Narvik. This wouldn't do for Hitler. To feed the German war machine, it was mandatory to the Nazis to secure as much iron and oil as possible. The capture of the Norwegian coast would give German ships, and more importantly U-boats, a safe launching off point for attacks in the Atlantic and British Channel. All of these desires culminated on April 7, 1940, when Germany launched out troops via ship to the invasion of Norway. Men were sent to the city of Trondheim and of course Port Narvik. Halfway through the transport route, German ships came under fire from British sea and air assaults. The British forces were too small to make a difference, and the German ships kept on moving towards Norway. Finally though, on April 9th, the Germans actually made it to Norway, and the landings at Trondheim and Narvik faced little Norwegian military resistance. But hey, we can't forget the invasion of Denmark. When the Germans invaded, the Danish government fell in less than 3 hours. 3 hours.
What? What the fuck?
The German landings at the Norwegian capital of Oslo were less successful than their landings at Trondheim and Port Narvik earlier in the day. When the German Navy pulled up on Oslo, the Norwegians fought back and sank the German heavy cruiser Blücher, which was carrying men. The German troop transports fell back further into the Oslo fjord and dropped their troops on beaches to assault the capital by land. Soon after the German army, on the ground, reached the capital of Oslo, the walls quickly fell under occupation, and the remaining Norwegian forces in the land of Norway fell into disorganization. After the fall of Oslo, there was few lucky people who got away before the full fist of the Third Reich came down on Norway. Most of them fled to Britain, and once they were safe, there was one thing on the mind of these Norwegian refugees. It was striking out against the Nazis that had taken their homes. The outrage grew when a Gestapo system was put in place, taking away even the most basic of rights from Norwegian citizens who did not manage to escape before the full Gestapo system was put in place. The occupation of Scandinavia for oil fields and iron mines was not the only sole intention Hitler had for this operation. Deep in the mountains of Norway, there lay one of the only factories in the world producing a super rare substance, deuterium oxide, called heavy water by its common name. This was a crucial component in manufacturing of an atomic bomb. I'm pretty sure I don't have to spell it out to you why it was pretty bad for the Allies for the Nazis to be in control of a plant that could create an atomic bomb. So they all got together to decide on a plan to destroy Hitler's chances of creating an A-bomb. Their big idea was dubbed Operation Gunnerside, and it involved a simple plan. They would take a group of Norwegian nationals, train them in practical skills for a secret operation to destroy the heavy water plant. The men chosen for the initial operation were Jens Anton Poulsen, Arne Kjellstrup, Knut Haugland, and Klaus Hellberg. I'm pretty sure I pronounced all those wrong, but just bear with me here. These 4 men were trained extensively by the British Special Operations Executive, and finally on October 18, 1942, these 4 brave men parachuted into the Scandinavian mountains near the factory they planned to sabotage. The first objective was to set up a radio communication post and temporary airfield for delivery of further Norwegian agents, but strong winter weather impeded the British efforts for delivering men and extra supplies. The situation worsened when one of the attempted resupply missions crashed in the mountains, and the sabotage mission against the heavy water plant was uncovered by German defenders in Norway. The English now had to stop all resupply efforts to the 4 men who were now isolated in the high mountains of Norway. These guys had no choice but now to live off the land in northern Norway, killing reindeer and using every part of the reindeer's body as food or material to stay warm in the harsh Scandinavian winter, even sometimes eating the half-digested reindeer moss from inside their stomachs. This is the way they lived until at long last, on February 16, 1943, 6 more men and large amounts of backup supplies were dropped into the mountains to join the sabotage effort. Now, finally, the attack on the factory was ready to go ahead, and under cover of night, they set out to destroy the factory, as seen here in the 1948 Norwegian film The Fight for Heavy Water. The only bridge over a vast gorge surrounding the plant was under constant guard from German troops, but the Norwegians, the badasses they were, said screw it and climbed down to the bottom of a 200-meter deep gorge and up the other side like it was nothing. Once to the wall of the compound, they cut the wires of the fence and made their way in, dodging German patrols. Their ultimate goal was the basement and the deuterium oxide creating cells it contained. Eventually, after a time of climbing through vents and slipping through doors, they reached the basement and took hostage a Norwegian technician. They placed the explosive charges. But right before they were ready to light the detonation fuses, the Norwegian technician had a last request. He couldn't find his glasses and really wanted a chance to search for them in the room because of how hard obtaining a new pair of glasses would be during the Nazi occupation. The saboteurs, always wanting to help a fellow Norwegian agent, agreed, and in a famous incident, they all stopped what they were doing and helped the man look for his glasses. Luckily, the glasses hadn't gotten far, and they were found and returned to the engineer quickly after they were lost. The charges were set fully, and the Germans were none the wiser until soon after when the basement blew, destroying fuel cells, electrolysis chambers, and other crucial components to the manufacturing of the deuterium oxide. The initial raid was successful, but in 6 months, the plant was operational once again. The Germans had rebuilt, and the Allies had enough. And finally, in November of 1943, a combined effort of British and American airplanes launched numerous bombing raids, destroying equipment and convincing the Germans that constant repair to the factory wasn't worth it. The Allies had seemingly won, but there was still one last hurdle to jump over. Let me just keep in mind that this story isn't only one of heroes and daring night raids, but also one of tragedy and human loss. The tragedy occurred when the last of Germany's heavy water supply in Norway was to be transported back to the fatherland for safekeeping. The Norwegian resistance was informed of this plan that the heavy water was to be shipped across Lake Tin on board a civilian ferry. They decided that the loss of civilian life would outweigh the damages done by Hitler attaining an atomic bomb. Despite the possible loss of civilian life, the charges were attached to the ship. When it was roughly halfway across the lake, the explosions detonated, destroying the ship and sinking the precious deuterium oxide cargo to the bottom of the lake. The explosion was fatal, and many Norwegian citizens went down with the ship. Besides the loss of civilian life, the operation was still a huge success. The Norwegians had done it. Throughout the course of their operation, this group of men single-handedly altered the course of the Second World War and world history. I'm sure you can imagine the repercussions on history and the Second World War if Hitler ever got his hands on an atomic bomb. These brave men risked everything they had left for a chance to strike out against the Germans that had invaded their land, taken their family and their freedoms. This was the amazing story that inspired many books and films alike, and I really do suggest that you watch some of the various documentaries, movies, books, or articles that have come out about this story. Just goes to show once again that crazy stories come out of war. Thanks for watching, everybody.